Hey, let me ask you a quick question. Are you living life by design or by default? We want you to stop and think. Just think about that. Right now, we're going to be talking with life coach and author Lynn Garrison, who is the author of Stop and Think. Welcome to Friends and Neighbors.
I want to live by design now. I want you to tell me, what can I do?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Okay. Train this brain, Lynn.
Yes.
You got it. Well, you just hit the nail on the head, and thank you so much for having me. And I am so stoked about this book because that's what it is all about, is living a life by design, not by default. And so how I came up with this concept was after doing years of youth ministry and public speaking and teaching high school and college age and hanging around with a lot of young people, that I realized that, most people, especially when you're young, you don't live life methodically. And so I thought, how could we prevent a lot of issues that happen in adult life? How could we prevent these things from compounding their interest?
Yes.
And so, right. So when you're young, I thought, gosh, just stopping and thinking could be such a cure for things like impulsivity and making bad decisions and bad choices. And so really the book is geared toward young adults, but I think everybody can gain something from it. I dive into a lot of concepts about really doing something so simple, like stopping and thinking, even every day, about where you are, where you're going, who you are. Are you living this life by God's purpose and God's design, or are you just living by a default mechanism? That and just doing a job for the sake of doing a job, or doing it because my daddy did it.
Yeah.
Or, is it your specific life plan, life purpose? Are you on God's thing, for your life according to your skill set? Because I think God made everybody to make the world better.
Right.
And so stopping and thinking really, too, about values, choices, morals, love, sex, dating, those things, of course, define where we're going. And so how you think today determines where you will end up tomorrow. And so if you can streamline your thoughts and to make them into a productive thing to where you want to head, then you're going to have a lot better chance of getting where you want to go quicker. It'd expedite the whole process.
Okay, so now this talks about transforming your life through, not necessarily through the mind, but kind of like through the mind, having a purpose in your life.
How do you transform your mind, though, Lynn? What do you do? Is there a formula?
Especially as a youth.
You gotta,
Right. Well, that's a very interesting question. I'm glad you brought it up. Is because, see, and that's where I think my writing is a little different and unique than the typical mind power thing. Because Romans 12, 1 and 2 really sums up the book. And I take it from the Message translation and kind of throw my own verbiage in there. And about your mind is renewed by wrapping it around God's truth. And that's the first thing we have to do, is to wrap it around God's truth.
Amen.
And so the more we do that, we find out who we are, what we're doing, and where we can go. Like a good example is if someone has very low self-esteem, or if they have some strongholds and things they feel like they just can't get over. And I feel like if we can train our mind, train our brain, then our emotions will follow. Because what goes into your mind sinks into your heart and then turns into a lifestyle habit. And so if we can stop and think about what we want to change and how we want to change, then we can wrap our head around the fact that God's strength is made perfect in my weakness. And so I'm going to acknowledge my weakness and all my shortcomings, and just come before Him and continually wrap His truth around my funk. And so I've got in here in one of the first parts, I talk about the mental meltdown and how our minds can become to a depraved state. And also how our mind can become blind.
How do your mind how do you get to a depraved state, though?
See, I think it is without stopping and thinking. You're going to be trained by the world around you, and the world's a bad trainer.
That's right.
And you're not going to recognize, you're not going to recognize your your own uniqueness and how God made you. And see, a lot of times we have to unravel the brain tangles that have been tangled up in our head.
Wow.
Brain tangles?
Brain tangles.
I know, right?
Love it. I've had a few.
I keep them.
Brain tangles are very popular.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, and so what we got to do is unravel those things, and you change your course of living by changing your course of thinking, according to Romans 12, 1 and 2. And so one example we can do, right, whether it be a negative thing that a coach or a parent or someone else has ingested in you, is to have something I call training for the quick turn. And something very simple to do is just like on the football field, when a receiver runs a play, he could run a 10 and in. And so he runs 10 yards and he cuts quickly to catch the ball. What we need to do is, as we're going a certain way and negative emotions and negative thoughts try to come our way, then we need to quickly turn to the positivity and the positive thoughts. And really something simple like that of continually training, it has a lasting impact. And I talk about the mental metamorphosis, and that is the antidote for the mental meltdown. And I give like a 7-step process, and it's a lot of examples like that, like training for the quick turn, wrapping your head in the right stuff. And it takes a lot of fight. It does. And it takes accountability and people around you, and surround yourself with people who are like-minded, who have a lot of the same passions, who can help propel you. You know, because everything we say either helps or hurts.
That's right.
And so get around stuff that helps, you know, and the bottom line is that it's really up to us as individuals to improve ourselves, but there's so much power in just stopping and thinking. There's a lot of practical things involved, but really the spiritual is the most important. And stop and think about this, like even, of course, when dealing with young people, you know, if that young person would have stopped to think before he started his first cigarette, or stopped to think before he pulled that trigger or swallowed those pills. You know, those kind of things. And so, but God can jump in the DNA of that stronghold and break it. And stop and think about that. And my website is trainwithlen, len.com, and I do consulting and speaking for companies and churches and youth groups, and just travel around with this message about stopping and thinking. Or on my website too, I have various fitness classes and workshops that I teach as well. So I'm really all about mind, body, spirit.
All right.
Yes. Well, I tell you what, I hope you've certainly enjoyed this segment with friends and neighbors. I certainly have. And you know what? I have learned I'm going to stop and think. So until next time, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.